the letter that has been published by the BBC chairman, Samir Shah. It has been published on the Culture, Media and Sport website, and we have it up for you here, where he has written to the chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee, wanting to put on record the BBC's position on a number of issues that have been raised in the leak of a letter to the BBC board from Michael Prescott, a former external advisor to the BBC's Editorial Guidelines and Standards Committee. He also wants to address questions that you asked me in the letter, and he said he wants to make it clear that they have taken Mr. Prescott's concerns seriously and considered the points he made carefully. They have met the board to discuss this. He said it is worth stating at the outset that some of the coverage of Mr. Prescott's memo has implied that he has uncovered a list of stories and issues that the BBC have sought to bury. That interpretation, he said, is simply not true. The issues raised by Mr. Prescott are precisely the issues that are being considered by the EGSC and the board. The EGSC is the senior forum in which we scrutinise BBC output when concerns have been raised from either internal or external sources, and we will determine what action needs to be taken. Put simply, the committee's job is to examine the bad news, not the good news. Sometimes the mistakes are one-offs, others may point to underlying problems. The job is never complete. It is only by identifying and highlighting these issues and implementing changes that the BBC demonstrates its commitment to continuous improvement. Now, he then says another view that has gained currency in the coverage, that the BBC has done nothing to tackle these problems. This is simply not true, he says, as well. Over the 3 years that Mr. Prescott was an advisor, he says the BBC has published corrections when we've got things wrong. They've changed editorial guidance to make the BBC's position clearer on issues and made changes to leadership where the problems point to underlying issues and carried out formal disciplinary measures. During the 3 years Mr. Prescott was an advisor to the committee, the BBC produced thousands of hours of outstanding journalism on television, radio, online, nationally, regionally and internationally. This does not diminish the importance the BBC board places on addressing the issues that Mr. Prescott has raised, but it is also important that a sense of perspective is maintained. So just to point out to you that what we are reading out to you now is the BBC chair, Samir Shah. This is the letter that I have right now from him that we have just seen in the past minute or so to the chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. And also to remind you in context, the BBC Director General Tim Davie and CEO of News Deborah Turness both resigned on Sunday after a leaked memo that criticised a 2024 Panorama programme made by an outside production company about the US president, where they edited together two parts of a speech that the president made, so that it appeared that he explicitly encouraged the Capitol Hill riots back in January 2021. Other things have been criticised in that memo as well. But here is a reaction that we have been getting now from Samir Shah that I am bringing to you. It's long. I'm trying to take you through the details and bring you the key lines as I see them. Right, on top of the specific stories, this report also identified concerns about underlying problems, for example, in the Arabic service or in long-form journalism. These areas have been discussed at length at the EGSC, and action has been taken to tackle this kind of problem. The BBC Arabic team has been restructured. A new Arabic-speaking head of editorial quality and standards has been appointed in the World Service, and a new social media research unit has been set up to verify those who appear on the service. In the UK, BBC News have appointed a new executive editor of editorial quality and standards to oversee domestic news output, and BBC News will imminently appoint a new director of news documentaries and long-form journalism who will oversee current affairs output. The changes in leadership set out are a determined attempt to tackle the underlying problems identified by both the EGSC and in Mr. Prescott's memo, and only by this action can we assure that broader change, not just the immediate correction of individual stories, is addressed. So there is a response to the concerns around BBC Arabic. Let me be clear, Samir Shah says, if the problems persist, we will take further action. Right, moving on, I'm just trying to summarise some of the key points in this letter for you. On the review of sex and gender identity, the EGSC noted much of the coverage met the BBC's standards of impartiality and accuracy. But then he now talks about the specific story that has led to these resignations yesterday, the editing of President Trump's speech in a Panorama program entitled Trump a Second Chance. Now, he says it has attracted significant attention. He said the issue was the subject of discussion and amongst the board, and again in January and in May there was concern expressed by the committee as well as Mr Prescott of the way the programme was edited. However, the EGSC also heard from BBC News that the purpose of editing the clip was to convey the message of the speech made by President Trump so that Panorama's audience could better understand how it had been received by President Trump's supporters and what was happening on the ground at that time. This issue was considered and discussed as part of a wider review of the BBC's US election coverage commissioned by the committee rather than handled as a specific programme complaint, given it had not attracted significant audience feedback and had been transmitted before the US election, so the point wasn't pursued further at that time. The points raised in the review were relayed to the Panorama team, including the decision-making on this edit. With hindsight, it would have been better to take more formal action. Since the publication of the memo, the issue has led to over 500 complaints. They are now being dealt with in the normal way, and it has prompted further reflection by the BBC. The conclusion of that deliberation is that we accept that the way the speech was edited did give the impression of a direct call for violent action, and the BBC would like to apologise for that error of judgement. So there we have an apology from the chairman of the board, Samir Shah, saying the BBC is apologising for the error of judgment made in this Panorama programme, where a clip of President Trump, two parts of a speech made by him, were edited together. Just going through, and I'm just coming towards the end of this letter where he says, I would like to assure you and the committee that I am absolutely clear that the BBC must champion impartiality. It is more necessary now than ever before. All the policies and practices we have implemented so far and will implement as we reshape the EGSC will be driven by the need to hold the highest standards in all of our content, video, audio and online. As chair, I take responsibility for that, and I hope this letter demonstrates that the BBC has taken significant action over the past 3 years. I will personally ensure that the BBC continues to take the necessary actions in the future to ensure the BBC retains the trust and confidence of the public that we serve. And I'd like to conclude by restating the importance of high-quality, independent journalism in today's polarised society. There is an increasing need for the public to be informed in a way that is impartial, truthful, and is based on evidence they can trust. And that is the sacred job of the BBC. So, Samir Shah there, the BBC chair, with that letter, and I am literally reading it to you as for the first time, as we all see it. It has just been published in the past few minutes or so. Hope I've managed to take you through the key points of this letter to the chair of the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. So that has now been published. You can find it online, and I imagine very soon it will also be on the BBC News website, because we have a live page up and running for you with all of the developments. But Samir Shah apologising for an error in judgment and how this Panorama programme edited a speech by Donald Trump.